For portable live streaming on the go, keep your phone charged with the Anker PowerCore 10,000, one of the smallest and lightest external batteries you can get. Affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and this is an interesting little subject matter when it comes to Marvel Studios and the contracts that they sign their stars to. Now, we know as the Marvel Cinematic Universe expands and expands and expands and expands, there are going to be situations where actors that they bring in are going to probably get job offers in other lucrative franchises. And you have to wonder if that's ever going to be a bit of a conflict of interest for Marvel, and so what they might put into their particular contracts in order to keep their actors from doing something that might cause some confusion. And that's actually where we find out that they've written it into the contract that it's kind of illegal for any of Marvel's stars to go over to the DC universe and be in anything involving DC Comics movies, the DCEU. And it totally makes sense as to why. You know, conflict of interest, it would be confusing to the fan base, so on and so forth. And it also might have something to do with the fact that we've seen it before, right? You had, it's back in 2006, James Marsden played Scott Summers in X-Men Last Stand. They killed his character off. Why'd they kill him off? Because he wanted to follow Bryan Singer from X-Men movies over to Superman. He wanted to be in Superman with Bryan Singer. There was loyalty there to the director, and I don't blame him for that. Both the first two X-Men movies were fantastic, and Bryan Singer really wanted to go off and do Superman. Interestingly enough on that, just as a quick side note, originally Brett Ratner was going to do Superman, and Bryan Singer was going to do X-Men 3, and then somehow they just switched. And that happened. So that's just a little fun factoid for you. But as a result, I have no idea if it's as a result of that, but I feel that might have something to do with it. In the Marvel Studios contracts, I'm pretty sure this was something added in by Kevin Feige, who worked on those X-Men movies, by the way. Then you would have this particular situation. And it makes sense now, because the DCEU is starting to grow, it's starting to build, it's starting to expand or extend, and it's starting to gain some traction that might one day prove to be a viable competition to Marvel. Right now, not really, but with the success of Wonder Woman, that makes total sense. But then you've also got the weird little tidbit of this, and this is where my mind it kind of takes a bit of a side road, is that this contract stipulation only applies to Warner Brothers in DC. Only applies to Warner's in DC. Does not apply to Fox and their X-Men movies. Because right now you've got Josh Brolin playing Thanos in Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, which I don't quite know how his filming schedule is working out with that. Because he's also going to be playing Cable and Deadpool 2, which started shooting yesterday in Vancouver, British Columbia. So I don't, or it's somewhere in Canada. I don't know. It's one of those weird things where it's like, a Marvel character, a Marvel actor, and a Fox actor playing two different roles, in these films. There's no conflict of interest there. Now, clearly, Marvel and Marvel, you can understand why there wouldn't be any kind of conflict, but they're two rival studios, and it's one that they've had a contentious past, right? I mean, when it comes to, let's say, cross-promoting X-Men and Fantastic Four, Marvel wants nothing to do with that, right? Every time there's an X-Men movie, there's no new merchandise, there's no new comics, really. They started kind of pulling back on X-Men a little bit here and there. They outright pulled Fantastic Four for quite some time. I think back in 2015, pulled them off the shelves. They want nothing to do with it. No cross promotion. They've always tried to ice out those films. And the reason why is because, there's no vested interest in them to help merchandise anything that might add to the success of the film. The reason being is because they don't make any money off of it. And again, there's also that long game of where if they don't kind of help the merchandising side of things, and then Fox isn't able to make enough money back off merchandising on their own rights, then they might realize that the franchise is not profitable and therefore not make new movies, and those rights then return to Marvel. It's a long-term game. Makes a lot of sense. Kind of happened with Daredevil with Fox back in 2000, and I want to say 14 or 2013, 2014, when Fox was like, oh, hey, our rights for Daredevil are getting ready to expire. Joe Carnahan's like, I have this wicked idea for a movie. And Fox is like, no, we don't want an R-rated Daredevil. And then that went back to Marvel. And then Marvel took it to television and gave us 2 seasons of pure bliss and a bunch of other cool shit to go along with it. So you get that situation as well. So again, I've been really kind of pushing this theory out there that somehow Fox, because Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios want all the characters back underneath the same roof, right? I've been really kind of positing how he could do it. And keeping this part of the contract open might allow for eventually some kind of cross, cinematic universe situation, very similar to what we're seeing with Sony right now. And it makes sense for Fox to do this. Deadpool and Logan made a lot of money, very well received critically and commercially. X-Men Apocalypse did not, right? Their big tentpole Memorial Day weekend, film from last year failed to connect in that particular way. And it made sense. The movie was a bit of a mess. Not horrible, but a bit of a mess. And so now they're trying to give it to Dark Phoenix. And they're bringing back everybody for Dark Phoenix. So they're trying to once again, push too much out there that runs the risk of not having the careful eye of Kevin Feige, and this time in Simon Kinberg, who maybe will do okay. Guy's never directed a movie, but he's been around long enough to maybe kind of know a few things. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But it's entirely possible that if that collapses, then they might bridge that gap, leaving that bit open in the contract. And again, look, I am fully willing to admit I could be completely overlooking, reading into this too much. I could be reading into it too much. I could be looking into it too much. But for me, looking at everything that's going on with comic book movies right now, and the successes and the failures and the studios and the deals, it only makes sense that this is where we're headed. The point we're headed is where if they cannot acquire underneath the umbrella of Disney and Marvel all these characters that they sold off back in the 90s, then they're going to do it by outperforming their competition and almost forcing their hand. So by basically coming to the table and saying, I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse, right? That's horrible. But the same thing with Sony is Sony was like, look, Marvel or Amazing Spider-Man 2 failed to connect the way that we wanted it to. So why don't we work a deal where you let us use the character, we'll produce the film, you fund it, you do the marketing, you keep the cash, but we get to use these characters in these other films, which will then bring in a lot more money and the merchandising. So that's a big part of it right there. And I think if that deal works, we're going to see that expand to Fox, which then could tie back into the contract, which that's where my mind goes during all of this. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is a way for Marvel just to further kind of fuck with DC in these situations? Do you think it's a way for them to maybe kind of open that door for the cross studio collaboration in the future by just having nothing mentioned about that in there? I'm curious to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day and peace out.